Welcome, creative community. Let me just give you a quick breakdown of how we're going to do this today. Since, there's a lot of information that I will provide. There's a lot of, experience that I hopefully can, transmit to you guys. A lot of stuff that happened to me and my career, my acting career, and also my coaching career. I'm also being assistant to casting directors and producers, and I see some known faces and unknown faces and new faces that I love to discover. So this is I already feel blessed, and hopefully you will feel blessed as well by the end of this masterclass. So let's dive in. First of all, I'm going to give you a spiritual introduction, which is of course no esoteric knowledge or anything like that. It's more like a metaphysical overview, how you should kind of perceive entertainment, perceive culture, perceive art, especially when it comes down to auditioning, right? Because today's masterclass is all about the self-tape audition that has become more and more prominent, that is more important to nail, that requires more and more quality, and that goes on with a ever faster pace, right? Where the requirements are a lot and the time is really is really not there most of the time. So we need to be fast with self-tapes. But then at the same time, we have also the in-house casting, the chemistry reading, the callbacks, production reading, director's reading, all these processes where we need to be live and attentive and poised and focused. So we have two different auditions nowadays compared to back in the days when I started, right? It was all about, coming in and showing what you got. Nowadays, we have more filters to kind of, because of course, there are also more contenders to the big prize, the big trophy of being part of a motion picture, which is one of the most beautiful things ever. So we're going to talk about what the overall general creative aspect is and how to get into a creative mode, even in a very short amount of time, and being always prepared to kind of, tap into fields of the unknown and being prepared to jump in the obscure matter of your own madness, of your own chaotic creative space, but giving it structure and having also control of what you do, of course, at the same time. So this is a beautiful and very, challenging quest. And so I want to dive into that just like an intro, pretty much to set the scene of where we're going to head with this beautiful masterclass today. And then we're going to talk, of course, about the audition process itself. What I feel in my humble experience of being part of entertainment industry for over 25 years now, and being an actor for over 35 years now, what I feel like has given me the most in terms of acting potential, in terms of mindset, tools and instruments, in terms of, skills that are necessary to kind of master the audition as painless as possible, because we should enjoy it. The reason I'm doing this today is like to launch this new initiative, I guess, right? To kind of embrace the audition process even more and to see it something beautiful, because it is a train, right? Sometimes we can jump on that train and that train brings us to a stop that is a commercial, to a stop that is a feature film, to a stop to a next train station where it could be like a big motion picture, whatever it is, right? So we need to kind of jump on that train and make it our ride, right? And stay on that train, on that ride as long as possible, right? Because, sometimes it gets bumpy, but it's always worth the ride. So we're going to talk about the self-tape audition process, and also the in-house process, how, what is important there, in my humble opinion, and what we as coach also for over the last 10 years, we have explored in Italy, in Germany, in the UK, in Australia, and all these places, what we have discovered there, it's always the same, right? So this is truly going. Hi there. Thank you so much for coming in today. And it's a process that's always about life. It's always about discovery. It's always about pleasure. It's always about positivity. And so therefore we should embrace it. It's a beautiful way to communicate, to express yourself. You have the chance to show your work, to show your craftsmanship, to show what you're made of, what you're really capable of. And so therefore there is so much beautiful stuff to discover. We're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about some self-tape tips. Of course, technical wise, we have sometimes like a challenging time when we're shooting self-tapes. I understand that. We shot hundreds of self-tapes, and we love the self-tape process. We, it's the COACHMC studio, sometimes we communicate with creators that are in completely different time zones. And so Skype, self-tapes, directing, reading together, blocking the scene, almost like a miniature day on set is one of our specialties. So if you like to check out any service regarding to that, you of course are more than welcome to do so. Also to the, to the members of the creative community, because there should be some sort of a benefit if you guys are live and direct here participating and giving me your precious time, right? So there should be something like a compensation to that besides the value that we can have. And of course, the live interaction that you can have with me. I think I should even honor you more. And so, because we're going to upload this on YouTube, but so everybody can watch it. But who really made the choice to, sacrifice some of his very precious time to be part of the creative community today and to jump into the creative dialogue should be honored with a 10% discount on any type of course you guys like to book through my website. It's the info at the COACHMC studio. But for no means I did this for any commercial purposes. It's just a way of saying thank you, nothing more than that. If you don't feel that it's not about it's not about industry, it's not about mechanics, it's about creation, and creation has to happen in an open dialogue where creativity is allowed. So there should be a space where people can just say, you know what, I like to say thank you for just being here. So thank you so much, guys, and let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's do a little let's say metaphysical intro to this, right? Let's have like a little spiritual touch of this before we jump into the technical, into the ratio. Before we jump into the left brain, let's have a little bit of a right brain excursion, right? Because right now we are hitting noon, which gives us 2.5 hours roughly before we hit the afternoon slump. It is called the daily circadian rhythm. Between 14:30 and 16:30, in those 2 crucial hours, our brain shuts off, basically. And so the worst emails have been written in those 2 hours. And the worst decisions have been made also on government levels. And the most wars have been declared between 2:30 and 4:30. So we have 2 hours for fully capacitating ourselves to absorb this knowledge and put it into action afterwards, hopefully. And if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to do so. So creativity in the audition room, or when we're talking about self-tape auditions, and really we had hundreds of those, and sometimes creativity was just simply the key to kind of deliver something special, even though your resources were limited. And there is, of course, this beautiful quote that says, the necessity is the creator of the creativity. I'm not totally d'accord with that. I'm going to tell you why, because I've met many rich creative people and people that were coming out of beautiful households and you can say very wealthy parenthoods, and they were super creative. So creativity doesn't necessarily has to be intertwined with the necessity, but creativity comes from curiosity. And so when you are curious, right, whether that's in a little space that you have or in an immense space, then you can always create something, find out something, and you should be eager to do so, even during a self-tape audition. Or let me say this, probably even more because it's a self-tape. Because yes, the self-tape or the in-house audition, the casting process, is a very peculiar, weird, sometimes uncomfortable process that, so far nobody has figured out anything better, right? So something smarter, something more adequate to kind of pick the right person for the right role in the screenplay. So it will still be an audition. Everything is an audition, by the way. Everything, right? As soon as we step outside, it's an audition. Everybody's watching us. Everybody is a cousin to some, network executive. So everything is an audition, potentially. But besides that, the audition process is special because it requires something special. And the casting director knows that, especially the more experienced ones. Even though they not necessarily always looked at that way, they fully appreciate you showing up and doing something special or trying to do something special. And what is something special? It is something creative, something out of the norm, something edgy, something curious, something weird. Warren Buffett always says, right, there is the most successful because the most successful is the fastest one. There is the most successful because the most successful is the smartest one. And there is the most successful because the most successful is the weirdest one. Think about Jim Carrey. He's just simply the weirdest of them all, right? And so therefore he's also the most successful. You know, sometimes being the weirdest in the room helps a lot. So where does this weirdness come from? It comes from, I like to call it, sticking out the antennas, right? And being open to, you know, receive what the universe gives you. I guess this is the spiritual part, but it's actually not that spiritual. It's energy, right? The universe is made of energy, right? Electricity. We are made of electricity, energy, water. So we're part of the universe. We're part of this fabric. And therefore, I like to introduce 3 sentences that will guide us through this masterclass and through the 3 main chapters of this masterclass. First sentence is, there are no accidents, and there are no bad ideas, and definitely there are no mistakes. In the audition process, there are no accidents, there are no bad ideas, and there are no mistakes. I repeat it. This is the first sentence. In the audition process, there are no accidents, there are no bad ideas, and there are no mistakes. You know, erase the concept out of your brain, because everything, potentially everything, is somehow good, somehow useful, somehow potentially interesting. Somehow you can use whatever you might now deem to be a mistake or an accident or a bad decision or a bad idea. Somehow that thing can help you to perform better. Sometimes it's exactly that will give you an honest edge. Sometimes the slip up, the mistake, the flaw will wake you up in the middle of the audition and make you realize, what the am I doing here, right? Just wake up, Lorenzo, come back to your senses. And from there on, you know, you nail everything else and you just kind of implement it into the flow of the audition. Let me know if that makes sense. But really, embrace this first sentence, because you never know if it's a bad idea. Don't feel so entitled to know whether or not. Of course, if you slap the casting director in its face or to assume extraordinary, outrageous stuff, then yes, that's a bad idea, I guess. Yeah, but we're not talking about the 0.0001 exceptions. We're talking about the mass that we can actually manipulate, the substantial stuff that really will help us. There are no accidents. There are no bad ideas. Sorry, and there are no mistakes. Try it out. Be curious. Have fun. Fool around. Go different paths. You know, switch from one thing to the other. Even if it doesn't seem to make sense in the first place, just go for it. Explore what it gives you. And if you slip up, integrate it, right? You know, kind of implement it into the flow, into the fabric of the rug, of the beautiful magical carpet on which you're going to ride with Aladdin towards the sunrise, right? Because this is it. This is art. This is creativity. This is no inspirational wagga wagga. It really happened to me hundreds of times. I've observed it hundreds of times, whether on set, whether in the casting process, whether being an assistant to a casting director or being a coach on set. In every, you know, thinkable type of angle, I've observed this, you know, when it comes down to acting, and always has this sentence be right, because the great actor looks out for the surprise. The great actor is willing to uncover the messy stuff inside of himself, so he could potentially slip up. The great actor, the excellent actor, the outstanding, the Daniel Day-Lewis type of actor, right? So we all understand, right? I mean, you might like him or you might not, but there is something outstanding about the preparation. Some actors just, you know, kind of what they do. And so therefore, I just take him now for a level of outstanding excellence, right? Of incredible high performance. Let me know in the chat box who's your, you know, to-go actor to kind of define that excellence. But that's what I mean, right? So they are like, great actors that look out for the stuff that is messy, that is dangerous, that is potentially, you know, a pitfall, you know, because they wanna go into places where no one else has gone before, right? Star Trek tells us that. So really embrace this concept, you know. And if someone will, you know, during an audition give you an adjustment, a direction, or just a little thing, or just a little note, and you internally have, you know, your angel and your demon sitting on your shoulder, aka your ego telling you, oh, this adjustment goes against my evaluation of the character, or this assignment, I don't like that, you know, I've prepared something completely different, or hey, why is this note feeling, you know, it's not really fair to say that, right? Don't judge. Take it in, use it, right? Because I understand that, you know, going to an audition means, or recording a self-tape means a lot of work, a lot of labor, a lot of sweat, a lot of passion, a lot of, you know, personal stuff, right? It's personal, it's private, it's intimate sometimes. And if then people, you know, like the casting director, if they are telling us, oh, this is not good, or it's not enough, or doesn't impress me, or hey, I give you a little assignment, or it's even positive, but we immediately judge it with our ego saying, oh, no, there is a certain jealousy about what I've created, right? This is my little puppy. It belongs to me. So I'm not going to change my little puppy because of you. What do you know about my art? I understand that type of narrative, right? Of that inner little ego demon sitting on your shoulder, you know, whispering in your ear. You know, check out old posters by magicians, by the way. You will always see the demon who's whispering something. And Socrates, in the end, was, you know, put to death because he was whispering to the demons, he was whispering to air, he was taking in confidential you know, material by you know, those ectoplasmic entities, they thought, because he knew too much, right? And so sometimes knowing too much is just confusing. And so put him aside and say to yourself, I believe in this decision. This is something I've worked on, and it's beautiful. I know that. But here is someone else who has a different perspective, who is there to evaluate whether or not I can jump on that train that will, you know, get me to the station. And it's not about, you know, betraying your values, or, you know, bending over or something like that, or bending the knee or something like that. It's understanding that this is a work process. He has some directions that you don't have. He has some informations that you don't have. The casting director knows things that you don't. You know, going from the script breakdown, going from the production notes, going to what the director told him that he's looking for. Maybe it's just a day where things have changed, so you don't know what he knows. So when he gives you a note, a direction, an assignment, a little adjustment, take it in. Don't be so jealous about the value that have created. Make more value out of it, right? Because together now this thing can grow. Excuse me. And so therefore, you can also double check if you're a great team player, which is always like a great side note. Besides being a great performer, he seems to be a great team player. So, you know, think twice before you're jealous and refusing and blocking out the direction, right? Maybe there is some hidden value there. Maybe the casting director knows something you don't. That's usually the case. So be open, stick your antennas out, be creative, right? Just be curious about life, where it happens, you know, look into the cracks, look at the angle, look at the edge of the box, you know, what's there, right? Just search be a detective of weirdness, right? And don't be afraid of making those famous bold choices, right? We will talk about that later, what bold choices actually mean. I mean, there are many things that I also hear from, you know, very famous acting schools. I can't phrase it otherwise. That really are just, you know, given phrases that sometimes don't get fully explored, or let's say they, in my opinion, don't receive the consideration they should receive, because these phrases need to be explained a bit more granularly. So for the acting student to transform the information stored inside of that into traction, into actual steam, into appliances, into actionable tools, and not just you know, the shiny and beautiful headline that, yeah, it looks and sounds cool and glossy, but, you know, kind of in the end, you know, it turns out to be pretty shallow and two-dimensional. So there's a lot more to just being bold or making bold choices, right? But we will talk about that later. The present where we live actively right now, this is the moment that is called the gift, right? It's present. Therefore it's the gift. By the way, if you want to nail auditions, you know, watch Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda tells you everything you need to know in order to nail auditions, right? It's a even more fun way than assisting this masterclass. But yeah, really, that movie is genius. There's so much, you know, knowledge and so many gems stored in that movie and kind of wrapped up so nicely and elegantly, also with humor. Fantastic movie. One of my favorite movies. And really, it helps a lot. I'm not joking. This is like partially the coach and its philosophy of the COACHMC studio was born by, you know, just by watching Kung Fu Panda extensively and kind of extracting all these philosophy gems out of it and kind of, you know, building an own philosophy, you know. But coming back to the present moment, the present is the gift. So this is the most important moment. It is also the most important moment for the character that we're interpreting while we're auditioning. Never forget that. Because sometimes we have the tendency as professionals, especially, but also as newbies, when we interpret the character, oh yeah, I'm interpreting the character. Yeah, this is a scene. Yeah, I have to kind of, you know, because I know what the industry requirement is, you know, they want to just see if I'm, you know, just fitting into the story breakdown. Yeah, okay, yeah, of course there is like a rational aspect of it that need like the technical requirements and the style and all that. And we will talk about that too. But there is another aspect to it that is existential that sometimes people overlook. And it's always the most important moment in that character's life. So this spiritual intro is also, you know, part of letting you understand that this high condensed moment, these 3 minutes, right? The audition moment, this is our life. This is the present moment condensed in 3 minutes. Now think of you. Think of Kimberly, of Victoria, think of Beatrice, think of Zizi, Alessandra, Elena, think of Martina, think of all these people here, all these moments in their lives. 30, 35, 40, 50 almost years, all condensed in 3 minutes. That's huge. That's a, you know, that's a big critical mass. But yet, here we go. Every time I watch an audition, I always see like subpar, mediocre, very, very contained delivery, all, you know, played down, very regular stuff. And I ask myself, is it because the actor doesn't want to give more, because he's actually bored, or because he doesn't fully understand that what he's playing right now is the most important moment in the character's life? This is always the truth, and it always has been and always will be. But yet a lot of people still ignore this fact because maybe they're afraid of stepping out of their usual fear zone and comfort zone and uncertainty cage and step out of that uncertainty cell and finally kind of realizing what you're actually capable of. Because Meryl Streep says is the best. You can't be on set and act while you're afraid. It doesn't work, right? You can't act when you're afraid. You can't do both things. So you need to free yourself from that uncertainty. Yeah, absolutely. Martina nails it. And here I go, and I really kind of, you know, this is my inquiry to you guys. Like, see it as such, because by doing so, you create that sense of urgency. And we should, you know, art, of course, needs time, it needs evolution, it needs reflection. I get it. But art needs sometimes also a shock momentum, an impulse, and energy. And that comes from inserting some urgency. Otherwise, it will always rely on comfort. And comfort is mediocre and mediocrity. I fight mediocrity wherever I go because I feel mediocrity is death of art. It's just conformism, right? To be all in that comfortable zone. No, this is a political agreement. It's not art anymore. And so therefore, this is my initial, you know, kind of appel, right? Just to create by being curious and by not being afraid, because you turn that fear, which is nothing else than false evidence appearing real, that fear, you turn that into creation, which is way cooler. Because by that you experience something. Aristotle once said, the truly wise man is the artist, because the experienced one, like the philosopher, he can be experienced as much as he wants, but he never puts it into practice. And the knowledgeable one, like the professor, he can be experienced as much as he wants, but he just, reflects the data that he has ingested. But the artist, according to Aristotle, is the truly wise man, because not only he has to reflect on his actions, they are actions firsthand, because the knowledge the artist accumulates has to be put into action. Otherwise, it's not going to be art. It's not going to be perceived. And action means to take action on things without necessarily knowing beforehand what result you're going to obtain from it. And therefore, acting is such a beautiful and also in a way also a spiritual experience. I mean, look at the history, look at where, acting is coming from the ritual enactment of what, our ancestors perceived from the night sky, from the celestial occurrings, right? From the events that were going on in nature, from the seasons, from the sun, from the moon, all these things were they were translated into physical form, and so they will be told so people could understand a certain cycle and they could remember it. And out of that process, the dramatic enactment of those, physical manifestations, they became visual, and all of a sudden they had names and they had attributes and they had all that, shapes and forms, and now we had gods, and they were, put into place by these actors, right? And so acting is really part of the storytelling process of the culture that we all kind of, bring forward. And therefore, it's a beautiful representation of life. Yeah. Let's jump into more technical things, and let's let's get to the nitty-gritty of today's masterclass, because more screens are being produced, I think, every 10 minutes than in a year they existed. It's a crazy number. And so more and more screens will appear, more and more messages will kind of, battle for our attention. And more things will take away concentration, awareness, focus, and energy from us. And the audition process is all about focusing, of, bringing a world into a concept of whether it's a self-tape, well, then you have maybe a couple of hours, or, an in-house audition where you have maybe a couple of days beforehand where you can prepare it, and then you physically travel to a place and have an audition, and you show what you got, what you have prepared, you show your work. But it's always, like I said before, it's a highly condensed moment. And so the thing about putting everything together that you need for an audition is, in a way, part of the audition itself, because there are many different ways of course, interpreting a character. There are many different ways of telling a story. There are many different ways of appearing on one of those screens that we have in our pockets nowadays, right? And therefore, it has become really crucial to understand that the only thing that really interests, the other one who's holding that screen, because most of the times, let's face it, it's going to be a cell phone or a smartphone, right? That other person is just interested by your personal notion, right? How you react to things, how you kind of, live your life, and how you perceive the situation you are in. So when you think about going to a casting or, shooting an audition, a self-tape audition, a self-tape, it's like really going into that place and really understanding, hey, I'm having this opportunity that is not really my craftsmanship building, right? It's not my skill training. It's not my training. it's not being on set, right? Because being on set requires a completely different set of rules, of course, and happens according to completely different requirements. It's also not being, you know, part of a stage experience. It's somewhere in between, but it has this weird function of giving the train the direction, right? Because we all, you know, we flock into this huge train station. I got a beautiful drawing here, Picasso-like. You know, this is our casting station, and there's this beautiful locomotive that brings us to the different outlets, the different stations, and we all flock in here. And it's sort of this distribution world and how we should see it, and nothing else. So we have the opportunity of adding more and more layers to this archive, to this station. And one day, for sure, the doors to the train are gonna, you know, they will open, and then it's up to us how long we're gonna stay on the ride. You know, we're gonna talk about that in the end also, you know, when you get into the movie business and when you know, how to stay there consistently is, of course, a completely different task. But what I'm trying to say here is that you should completely embrace this freedom and have completely fun with it, and not seeing as something like an obstacle or something that is an enemy or something that is adverse to you. Quite the opposite, right? They have created this inner dimension of the casting process because of that, because they really want to know you. Because maybe there's also a misconception sometimes that, you know, the casting process is about being perfect, or, you know, what they're trying to see there. But of course, they have to evaluate different things at the same time. You are there just because of the acting, of course, but they are there to see many different other things as well at the same time. And they need to be fast. They need to assess it quickly. They need to be efficient. Otherwise, they won't be great casting directors and they won't get booked for greater projects. So you see, from the beginning, there is this thing about time, about this urgency, about this compressed desire of having the possibility of, you know, assessing as quickly as possible whether or not you fit the description. And so they have to assess, are you a team player? They have to assess, are you great with other people? They have to assess, do you take directions in a good way, or do you transform, you know, directions immediately, or does it take more time for you to kind of understand what kind of notes your casting director is giving you? Is like they assess all sorts of things, from your hygiene to your style, if you nailed the style of the movie, if you really know what you're talking about, all these things. But you care only about the acting, and this is the great freedom. You don't have to go there because you're perfect, because you're all, you know, you're not a star, or maybe you are a star, but you're not going there to show that you're a star. You go there because you wanna show your work and have fun with this character, you know, in this imaginary circumstance. So this technicality that isn't really a technicality, but more like, you know, a state of you know, how the things are built. Like, this technicality is very, very important and fundamental to understand, because once you kind of decipher this and you turn it in your head around, you won't be so afraid anymore of the casting process. Or you don't, you know, it's like sometimes, oh, I have to do an audition. Oh, self-tape, another one. It's like 15 pages. I know it's hard. You know, we do this, and you know, sometimes it's an all-nighter, and sometimes it takes a lot of effort. Sometimes you have to be ingenious, you know, with props and all that. Yeah, but this is what makes you strong. Sometimes people ask me, or my clients, for what it's worth, hey, how can I be a successful actor? By acting like a successful actor. What does that mean? It means that you do everything a successful actor would do when you get an audition or a self-tape request. Because I can tell you by coaching them that the more successful they become, the more eager they are to nail their self-tapes. It's incredible. You know, the more they make in revenue, the more they look at details and all that, which is, of course, also like logical, right? These actors, they want to make sure that, you know, their reputation kind of, you know, keeps the level. you know, they are known for. And so they can really shoot like, you know, flawed self-tapes and, you know, send in, you know, bad or flawed material. But really, the eagerness for them to succeed is crazy, because they realize that this technicality, which is metaphysical, that the casting process is somewhere in between, right, in those dimensions, is actually a great advantage. It's not an obstacle. It's not a problem. It's actually a great advantage, because it gives you enormous freedom. Of course, you shouldn't overdo it. You shouldn't do just things that are big and loud just for the sake of it, to kind of, you know, impress or shock people. We'll talk about some strategies later, but if it's within the realm of the development of the character, by all means, why not? No holds barred. Show it. It's show business, right? So show it. Show what you got. If you want to be a bit, you know, you can always subtract. If you, you know, send in mediocre material that is low key or a bit too much, you know, watered down, what do you think they will think? They won't go and say, oh yeah, she's playing it a bit watered down, a bit low key because she doesn't want to, you know, come over. They don't think that psychological. They don't give them. They evaluate what they see in the now, in the present. They see material that is low key, so they will think, well, this is a low key actress, or this is some, you know, it's a bit of a too much of a decent actor. I think, like, decent in terms of too much decency. We would love to see a bit more outrageousness, or a bit more, because again, it's a world in between, so everything is allowed. And nonetheless, I see many actors sending in material that is so, almost like it, you know, it's very rational stuff. It goes back and forth. It's more talk than acted. It's more talk than played, than anything. But here we're talking about playing, about being creative and doing things that are a bit weird and strange and phenomenal and amazing and great and funny and disruptive and compelling and interesting, right? This is what while we're watching this. So what do we have? We have self-tapes. And self-tapes, they give us the advantage of time, because we have more time. They give us the advantage of more takes. It's like a day on set, like a miniature. I always say it's a miniature day on set, having that, you know, the possibility to shoot a self-tape project. And we assisted many in many different ways. And if you really take it with the right spirit, it's always a fun process. You know, you have multiple choices. You can act in different ways on your self-tape, and then decide what you send in. Or maybe you send in 2 versions and you ask your agent, or maybe you ask first your friends or your families, people like that know you well, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, what they think of it, and then, you know, let them pick the best version of what they think the best version is. And it's a great way of delivering value. I see it that way. A self-tape is like, really, what does it cost you? Almost nothing. A bit of energy costs and effort and energy on your own, but in a way, it's almost for free, and you get the chance to be heard and to be seen, which is not that, you know, normal all the time. You know, out of, again, that's why I said we have millions of screens, and here we go. Somebody sends you in an audition, and sometimes I feel like actors are like, oh, okay, a self-tape auditioner again. Is like, hey, do you realize that out of the 3 billion screens that we have on planet Earth right now, somebody chose you to be on his screen, and you go all precious, and you go all, oh my God, yeah, I don't know if I have time between my nails, my eyelashes, my party. And yes, not sometimes, I get it. There's also like my house, you know, my kids. There's more serious stuff going on than you. I won't, you know, I'm not putting it that way. Of course, there's always a necessity, but hey, again, see it as such, right? There's an energy investment to make, and the outcome might be, potentially very, very interesting to your career, but just to yourself also. Many times when we, when we went that extra mile, production kind of sent us an email back, is like, hey, thanks so much for this great self-tape, really enjoyed. Unfortunately, your client couldn't, make it this time, but we really want to say we really appreciated the effort. We've seen that. or agents kind of calling back or sending back messages, giving feedback. Hey, that was a great self-tape. Who is that guy in the background? So it's always worth it, right? It's because it's not always about booking that role necessarily. Sometimes it's not even your role, or it shouldn't be, but it's about creating a legacy in this business. You want to stay here for the long run, right? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So sometimes it's just a little success like that, like getting feedback from your agent, noting, right? This is like, because that agent will sit at lunch with another famous producer, another director, and a bunch of other folks, and they will talk at lunch. So this going on is like, yeah, I could need someone who's like, yeah, you know what? My guy, he sent me like a nice self-tape. It was great. Really? Yeah. Oh, cool. So they talk about that, maybe just randomly, but that will stick. That information will stick. And that other agent or the other producer one day might go, hey, you know what? I probably have somebody for you that you're looking for, because my other friend, this agent of mine, tells me about this actor who always sends in great self-tapes, and he seems to be a very funny guy. Maybe you want to check him out. Bada boom. This is how the soft structure, the phantom structure of entertainment industry works. And it really works. That's why I said everything's an audition. Read Acting in Film by Michael Caine. A beautiful book, is one of my personal Bibles, where he talks about that everything is an audition. And it's true, in Hollywood especially, but everywhere. It's, because we have screens everywhere is an audition going on. So therefore, go into this other dimension, into this strange world that is kind of, it's kind of hung up there, right, between these other worlds of the audition process, like an explorer. Just go in and try to, to gain as much expertise, experience, as much as information as you can. Try to uncover as many surprises as you can. Go there with this spirit, not of nailing the audition and booking the role, right? Sometimes I talk like that on my YouTube channel as well, on my Instagram as well, of course, because I want to motivate people. But actually, it's not always right? And I should also sometimes say it's not always about booking the role, but surely the ambition, of course, being creative, being an artist, your ambition is to get booked, right? To see the money, to see the project, to kind of tell people what you're capable of. And so therefore, it's of course gaining that expertise about that world and adding a puzzle piece to your legacy, to your overall legacy. And since there are no mistakes, since there are no accidents, I want to introduce the second very, very important quote of today. When it's about the audition, but in general, when it's about acting, be free. Because in the end, no idea is really final, right? Even if you think, oh, this is it. This is fucking it, right? There is no other way we can. Next day you wake up, no, I got a better idea. It's crazy. So this freedom, you kind of always take into account that even if something doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It's right now, this idea just needs a little adjustment. It just sometimes it's just a little push, a little facet and nuance, and then it becomes something magnificent. It's like the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It's literally that. So there is no final idea. And therefore, we have this immense privilege, right, of becoming skilled with our craft by exploring, by adding expertise, and by creating a legacy, more than having the mindset that I need to book the role. This is what I was trying to say. Of course, our ambition is to book the role, but overall, when in doubt, zoom out. What do you see? Your legacy, the tree of your achievements, of your accolades, of your little and big stories. That is the beauty of a career in entertainment industry. And we should never forget that, because it's life. And life is non-linear. It's a non-linear story. There is so much to life, And therefore, there's so much to the audition process, because in that moment, life happens for real, right? And therefore, I think we should embrace it and turn it into something glorious for ourselves, into one of our strongest weapons, instead of being afraid of it. My kryptonite is also my superpower, and my superpower is most likely also my kryptonite. It's always like that. It's always yin and yang, because life is multi-layered. It has multiple dimensions, right? It's always dynamic. We always wake up. We always have a chance. We always will fail. We'll always make decisions. There's always a state of decay going on, and also always a state of growth. And therefore, it's in constant movement. Panta Ray. Everything moves. Everything is in movement. So if you wanna, if there is one tip to say, hey, how can I double check if my audition is good? Is there movement? Is it dynamic? Is it multi-layered? Is it multifaceted? Is it fascinating? Is it compelling? Is it outrageous? Is it weird? Is it strange? Like really strange? Then probably it's good, because different is better than better. As long as it's different, it's better. And therefore it's better than better. And therefore it's most probably good, if not even great. When we have a non-linear story, that means that we also can give up the jealousy of having created this and that character, because being a non-linear story, as life happens, of course, we take in life. And if the casting director is not part of life, I don't know what it is. So if he gives us something, we integrate it, and therefore, bada boom, we have a new story. We have a new idea, or it evolves, or it adjusts, right? So our self-tape process should be that. Like, I want to create a world. I want to be outrageous. I want to be curious. What can I do with what I have right now? And yeah, sometimes you just have to pretend that something is a cigarette, or something is an alcoholic drink, or something is a cell phone. So what, right? It's acting. You want on set, sometimes you block scenes, not necessarily with the props that later we're going to be in the movie. So this is not something completely different than what you experience on set. Don't be so shy, just be yourself. And here we get to one of those phrases I also hear that I just mentioned before, from a lot of even casting directors, but, schools and facilities and material that you can get. Yeah, like, be yourself, be bold, or make bold choices. And it sounds nice if I hear this first, but I'm the reflective type of guy. And when I think about it more and more, I get doubts about this thing of saying, be yourself, because I really don't know who I am. I mean, there are schools of philosophy, there are libraries, they are packed with books, and so, like, thick books to try to explain what the concept of a human being is, of who we are as human beings. So I don't think it's my mission as an actor to just be, because I don't know what that is. My mission as an actor is to be entertaining. To be entertaining is something else. It's more specific. And to be as honest as I can get, because that, translates in something harmonious. But when they say all these things, in the end, what I think they really mean is to be confident. Because when you are confident, because you're confident, because you went through a preparation, you went through rehearsals, you went through exercise, you went through reflections, you went through critique, you went through practice, you went through repetition. So you become confident with opening yourself up to the moment, with being creative, with not being afraid of making any mistakes and going wherever your gut feeling kind of, gets you to, and exploring the possibilities that you have. Will that mean that does that mean necessarily that you always book the role, always get the project, always be, happy with the result, and you will always get at least a callback? Of course not. Of course not. That would be boring, because, of course it will lead to some failures, some mistakes, or maybe it's just not what they want to see in this particular moment of time, or maybe it's just not working chemistry wise, or maybe there are some other obscure, motives and reasons why you're not getting at least a callback, but it means that you are always confident with you, like with yourself, to be the confident you. That means that you emanate something like positivity, something like secureness, something like stability. Because I tell you what, of course, there is this beautiful narrative, right? The stereotype of the unsecure and shy and introverted and very strange and weird looking actor that comes and then performs like, wow, watcha, Barbara Streisand and Robert De Niro melted together, and then kind of, goes back into his uncomfortable, unstable, uncertain shell, right? And I don't think that person exists, because if you practice that much to be a successful actor, to be, kind of auditioning for certain roles, means already that they think that you could potentially be in that movie. So they cut you slack here, so they know that you are pro. I don't think that somebody who's that experienced, who can perform on so many levels, has that type of personality where he needs to change or transform himself. Like it's to be confident you. It's okay. I'm not talking about being arrogant or cocky or stuck up, because that of course is just a sign of insecurity and fear. But to approach this whole process from a place of love, really, even if that sounds a bit cliche, place of happiness, of joy, of optimism, of positivity, to be really confident with you. And if you're not confident, probably, it means you haven't done your homework. I mean, not confident means not nervous, right? You can be nervous. There's some stage fever going on. There should be some, a healthy, positive tension going on in your system. A bit of good vibe nervosity is always right, because it wakes us up. It delivers some energy, some adrenaline is always needed. But that doesn't mean that you're not confident if you have a little bit of stage fever. That means that you're there and that you're feeling the moment. This is good. There's a lot of electricity, a lot of charge going on, a lot of tension. Of course, we feel that. It's reflected. That's a good sign. That's a great indicator. It tells us now is the moment. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's do this. Let's have fun. Be positive. Right? To be the confident you means to be the positive you, because nobody wants to talk with this guy. Nobody wants to work with this shy, introverted. Oh, that's just cliche to sell books and stories and magazines. I think even the most shy and introverted actor is pretty confident about his skills, about what he's doing. It's work. It's not. Yeah, I see it also as a spiritual thing, but it's not like really channeling. It's not a seance. You don't need to be a medium or somehow genetically enhanced, right? It's regular stuff. You can practice this. That's why we're here at the COACHMC studio as well. By practice, Bruce Lee said it, right? The only way to mastery, not to perfection, to mastery, goes through repetition. And why am I putting the emphasis on mastery and not perfection? No, first of all, perfection is fascism. We don't want fascism, right? Because there's no fun in perfection. And second of all, mastery means skills. It means that you have worked on stuff, that you have practiced, that you have, put a lot of labor and sweat in it, and that you really are connected to those instruments, that they really feel you. And now this sentence makes sense. Of course, be you, be the confident you, be the master of your communication, of your ceremony. This is why it's called also the COACHMC, to be the master of your communication, of your ceremony, of your creative output. So be bold. Yes, of course, be bold, but not necessarily because boldness wins you or the hearts of the casting directors worldwide, or being bold gets you the role immediately. Being bold means you can be bold, you can be audacious about your choices, and if you feel to go in a direction like your gut feeling tells you in the moment, then do it. By all means, do it. Go wild, of course, but not because you think just by beating up the place. Yes, they will remember you for sure if you beat up the place or if you put on a big show, but it's, like I said, there are many more layers to getting the role and being booked. It means also you get inserted into a production company, into a production process, into a chain of performance by many different actors. And so they need to evaluate and assess if you fit in there as well, besides having the talent, because they think you have the talent. You don't have to show them that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there in the first place. This is, I think, like a big misconception. A lot of people, yeah, I want to convince them of my talent, right? I want to show them, right? It's like, you don't necessarily need to know that. Just nail what's necessary for the role, for the audition, right? They don't need to be convinced that you're a good actor. They already think and believe that you're a good actor. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. Does that make sense? So, because you can always subtract, you know, go wild means also, of course, of being loud, but not for the sake of it. If the character leads you there, if your choices, you really like, your intuition leads you there, if the moment, the improvisation, or even what you got, you know, in terms of notes or adjustments for another take from a casting director, if that kind of leads you to that conclusion that you need to go wild, then go wild. But don't go wild just for the sake of, you know, going wild and being loud, because that's, are you a clown? No. Okay, so you're an actor. So fulfill the necessities first, and then, you know, see what you can add on top, right? I always say acting is structure, chaos, structure. You have to have a lot of structure into place to then unfold, go crazy, go wherever you want, because now you feel safe that you can do it, because you have your fundamentals, you're confident, you can make those bold choices now, but then come back to the structure, right? Because if you lean too much into the audience, I've experienced this myself. I've made this. Right now, I'm writing the second draft of my book, and I went through the very painful process of looking at my mistakes, and not painful. It was also funny, but yeah, painful process of all of my mistakes, right? Because that is the most juicy stuff. I feel like there I can, you know, I think translate a lot of that I can translate into useful tools for you guys and provide value to the community. So I was looking at my mistakes for the second draft, and definitely one of my big mistakes, especially when I was kind of growing up into theater culture. I wasn't like a household name. I was, you know, rather playing smaller roles, but for big productions, I was making the mistakes to lean too much into the audience when I was getting the feeling that it would like what I was doing, right? That was a farce. I was charging the role way too much. I was overplaying it and masquerading more than showing. And so therefore, yeah, that's a painful and beautiful process to kind of, you know, realizing, hey, this is something I can turn into a useful advice. And I love to do that. I don't have a problem with that, but quite the opposite. It's funny to remember those moments. And yeah, you can always subtract, of course, but don't let it, you know, feel like you're leaning in too much or you're charging it too much, or because then it becomes like farce, like it's a charade. It's not acting anymore. Let's get, before we get to the you know, next block, where we talk about the technical aspects a little bit more, the technicalities a little bit more, because recording a self-tape has become increasingly difficult because so many self-tapes are available, and so of course the quality bar is rising continuously and very quickly also. So we need to keep up with that in order to be considered. But there are some other things that you should consider, and also some useful tips, a couple of gems, you know, that will enhance the performance and, or just, you know, kind of emphasize the concept even more, that I think are, you know, kind of underrated in a way. And before we do that, and we close up with the, you know, with what the difference is between the live casting and of course the self-tape casting, because one thing should be clear, right? When you have in-house audition, again, you have this great opportunity, and I see that, you know, sometimes the actors, they come in when, you know, sometimes I was working for the soap opera for many years, and I was one of the protagonists, and so sometimes the casting office would, you know, kind of get me to you know, assist the casting process for future actors, right, or future parts that would interact with my part. And so sometimes I could see the colleague coming in, right, and you could literally see in their eyes they had like an idea. They had a certain charge, and then they start listening to the casting director, what he's saying, and then they get more and more insecure, and then they look around and they lose more and more confidence in that idea and that spark. And then by the time they had to start the audition, they were on the lowest energy levels. They were, and from that beautiful charge they had in the beginning that I could see in their eyes, nothing really was left anymore. And so what I feel like happens sometimes, that people get discouraged or distracted. Usually that's, you know, the major reasons for people not pursuing their gut feeling or their intuition, or not, you know, kind of listening to their creative spirits. It's because for some strange reason they seem to be discouraged or distracted, and so they lose focus and therefore energy, and then they, you know, I feel an audition, especially a live audition, is a great way of showing you're really like your intimate, private part. There is this camera. This is not a big set, right? The reader is mostly like an assistant, most of the times an assistant to the casting director. He's not really an actor. There's casting director swamped with work. And there is this, you know, this parallel universe going on. And this is a great opportunity to flirt with this world, right? Because we are not usually in that world. And so if you see the casting, the in-house casting as sort of a, you know, as a date, right? It's a requirement, you know, mechanically I need to deliver my performance, all that. Yeah, okay, you need to be prepared, structure. But when you're in there, chaos time. And so therefore, when are we the most chaotic inside of ourselves? Like, where is it that we experience the most turmoil, the most upheaval? Where does it happen that we have the inner roller coaster going on? Most of the times, it's when we're in love. Most of the times, when we're on a date. Most of the times, when we're doing something new, something flirty with someone else, right, that we kind of like. And so, see it as such. Casting in-house process is like a date. If you behave like on a date, right, you're charming, you're flirting with the camera, you're a likable person without putting on a show, of course. I'm not talking about the exaggerated, artificial. I'm confident you, honest you, but on a date, slightly nervous, right, but likable. A person you want to have a conversation with, a dialogue with, you want to discover more from. Because if you're stiff, if you're closed, if you're just there to deliver mechanically, you know, sometimes it's just a couple of sentences, a couple of lines of exchange that will, you know, kind of increase the possibilities of a callback, or where you have the possibilities to kind of interact personally and, you know, give clues about yourself and not just about the character. So you can kind of, you know, because the reptilian center, the oldest stem in our brain, loves, you know, to see if someone is prey or if someone is threat, right? And so if you give the reptilian center an excuse to be curious, you know, if they get a sneak peek, right, behind the curtain, they most likely will follow that. So give them a chance to get curious about yourself. Be like on a date, because this is where the flickering sensation happens, where things get turned into butterflies, where there is like something is charged when you are on a date, right? The air is charged. You can almost physically feel it when it's on a good date. Of course, we know the bad dates where I want to go home, right? No, I'm talking about the great dates. Those dates where you feel like, ooh, this could lead to something. I'm not just talking about the sexual results. I'm just talking about the sensorical, emotional, gut feeling type of results that you're getting from your system when you're dating. There is no way to reduce nervousness, because it makes no sense to focus on something like nervousness. If you put your focus on, oh, I have to erase nervousness, I have to erase nervousness, then you are nervous. because you're talking about it all the time. Focus on your creativity. Focus on the necessities, on the requirements of the character, on the audition. But we will get to the Q&A session in a bit, half hour, 40 minutes, and then you can ask whatever you want, and you can also introduce yourself, guys. So be like on a date, because that date time is exactly like casting time, a universe apart. It's not really relationship time. It's not really dating, like dating time. It's not really, oh, now we're a couple time. No, I'm kidding. I love my wife and I love to see her every day. It's not really, right? It's not sex. It's what is date? It's a universe. It's like the casting station, right? The station that will lead to everything else in life, right? Where this is kids and this is, you know, family and this is marriage and all that, right? This train could be also the wedding train, right? And there is a casting station for that. And so therefore, yeah, we are always auditioning, like I said. You know, enjoy that process. Feel like on a date. Open your senses up, right? And get into that nervous state and embrace that, because usually, you know, a lot of good stuff is coming out of that. And at least it's honest. And dating, yes, sometimes you're insecure, but that doesn't mean that you can't be confident, right? Like on a good date, of course, it helps when you're prepared. You know, if you're prepared, if you have some cool answers, if you have a cool slate at the end, it's like, yeah, it was nice seeing you. Thanks for your consideration. This is my height, this is my name, this is my number, right? It's like on a date. This is what we do at the casting office as well. So bring a sense of humor to this whole thing. Don't see it so serious. It's a beautiful opportunity to show who you are and what you're capable of. No holds barred, no excuses, no lamenting, no complaining, no finger pointing off. Why would you do that? Why would you invest your energy instead of creating something marvelous and to create a legacy and leave a mosaic puzzle of your career? Instead of doing that, focus your energy on destroying, on be deconstructive, on be destructive in itself. So why would you do that? You want to be a negative charged person or a positively charged person? It's so simple. It's like the battery. We don't have more poles. Even if people nowadays, you know, scientists want to tell, oh, yeah, we have multiple poles, 48 poles, 60 poles. It's not true. There are just two poles in this universe. It's extension, contraction. It's love, it's fear. It's breath, it's breathing out. That's it. It's yin, it's yang. The Tao gives birth to the one thing. The one thing is called yin and gives birth to the two things. The two things is yang and gives birth to the three things. The three things give birth to thousands of things. Thousands of things will give birth to infinite possibilities, right? So out of the one, two were born. It's like a cell that divides. Out of the two, the three will appear. Out of the three, infinite possibilities will be there for us, right? So embrace that. This is so much how the casting process is different when we're self-tape auditioning, when we're shooting a self-tape at home. Like I said, we have more time, we have more choices, we have more versions, we could show it to someone else, right? Like let them judge, let them pick the best take. We have the possibility of being a bit more ingenious with our props, right? Not too much, of course, you know, always common sense, always decency in that case, right? Less is more sometimes, but, you know, the casting director picks up on that. If you were really ingenious with your props, if you really made like interesting choices, if you transformed your living room in a set room for just a couple of hours, they will appreciate that. Again, it's not about booking the roles. It's about, you know, leaving a piece of the legacy, right? So people will remember you. This is the most important thing in entertainment industry, that they will remember you. And why? Because Re or Ra is the sun. It's old Egyptian. It's Ra, right? It's the sun god, where it's actually the spiritual sun. It's the universal sun. It's the concept of returning, of regeneration, of recycling, right? The reset. And Set is an Egyptian name as well, right? That's the dark brother of Osiris, right? This is the one who placed Osiris into the casket, and then, you know, Horus had to fight for the return of Osiris against Anubis and Set. And so in Reset, there are both aspects included in one word. It's like an oxymoron, right? In a way, because it means darkness and it means light at the same time. But remembering means light. They remember. You are a member of their collective consciousness now. You are a member of their recollection of you. You are a part now of their mental archive, of their mental folder, and of their physical folder as well. Remember is one of the most positive things we can do, because it's light. It's like they get an idea because they remember you. Ah, there's light going on, right? But illumination. Now I'm an Ilu. That was the old god of the Sumerians. Anu and Ilu, right? Ah, I remember him, right? There is this divine connection all of a sudden because you left an energetic signature. Make sense? Good. Let's get to the next part. Let's get to some technical aspects and little tips that will help you enormously to improve your in-house casting and your self-tape audition, technical wise, you know. Now, first of all, generally speaking, I feel that people sometimes don't really appreciate the aspect of being a bit more of a detective, of investigating a little bit more what the script, what the style, what the whole concept of the movie is. And I get it. There are some LA actors and some also New York actors, also some Georgia actors now and Louisiana actors that are very busy, and therefore you don't always have the time. So therefore book a coach. He does it for you. But otherwise, of course, I get it. It's, you know, you don't always have time to do major research on the project. But I don't necessarily mean only that. I mean, just connect yourself with the material a bit more granularly. You know, allow yourself to kind of, you know, get some time out of your schedule. And sometimes, yeah, that's maybe waking up a bit earlier, or like, you know, pushing in an all-nighter. We all had that. Or, you know, just somewhere you can borrow it from, I'm sure. And those couple of extra minutes, that extra mile that you go, it kind of it translates in better work most of the time. So do your research and like really get a clear idea, right? Illumination, get a clear idea of what the style of the movie is, what the director is usually doing, what he usually likes to see, what brand this movie represents, right? If this movie would be a car, what type of car is this movie? And subsequently, how should I dress up for this movie, right? Because, you know, you can't come out of a Bentley. I mean, you can, but it looks weird, right? With I don't know, with short pants. These days, rappers made it impossible to create any type of analogy or example, because they kind of flip the pyramid upside down. They can ride Bentleys with their jogging pants on and some sliders, but you get the point, right? It looks weird, right? Somebody who comes out of a Bentley and is well dressed, this is the association, this is the alignment you like to see, and then put the Casino of Monte Carlo as backdrop. Bada boom! Now you have a scenery. This could be an Asian movie. This could be an action-packed thriller with some black money that's been transferred in a casino. All of a sudden you get an idea, right? You get a signature, you get a taste of the movie, you get colors, you get images. So align yourself with the movie, with the audition as much as you can, in terms of style, in terms of photography, in terms of choices of your clothing, of your speech, right? How you speak. Sometimes it's a dialect, sometimes it's a little thing. Sometimes it's a major thing you should work on, you know, voice acting wise, or, you know, kind of dialect wise, accent wise, you know, maybe if you can insert that. Sometimes I once auditioned for a magician, right? I had to learn a couple of card tricks. It was a great role because I also had to speak Russian. And so it was really beautiful. The preparation for it I didn't get the role. It was a callback, I think, in the end, but it was so great to prepare for that role, right? To speak Russian, play card tricks and all that, and gamble. And it was so much fun to explore that world. And yeah, it's a fun process. You should be treating it as such. Of course, with all the requirements, we can't always break the bank at home, right? We have we have chores, we have, you know, we have our appointments, we have our must-do lists and all that. But, you know, if you can do that, because it will tell, it will show that there is a different connection with you and the role if you do that type of work. So ask yourself all these questions. Be really investigative about that. Be a detective. I really mean that. Be Batman. Dun, 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 Batman. Right? Because really sit down. It's like, there's another facet. There's another detail. But this is something interesting. I could insert that. And yes, yeah, maybe you should stop at a certain point, because otherwise it's too much. Of course, always use common sense. But in my experience, rather too much investigation is always potentially a benefit, and never something that kind of downsizes the product. Quite the opposite. Again, the casting director can always subtract. He likes to see potentially, I would say the vast majority of casting directors like to see more in the beginning, so they can kind of, you know, adjust and mold and manipulate and subtract what they think is too much, instead of just seeing that toned down version where they think like, ooh, I don't know if I can get him on that level that I need him to be in order to perform this movie. You get the drift, right? So self-tape tips. Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it a thriller? Is it a horror movie? Is it a fantasy movie? Is it a superhero movie? Is it a biopic? Is it a horror movie? Is it a supernatural movie? What type of movie are we talking about? How much information can you extract out of your agent, out of the material, out of everything? And, you know, based on that, you should also think about, you know, how to use your technical equipment. Because let's say you're playing, you know, you're recording a self-tape for a comedy. What is really, really cool about comedy? Of course, gags and jokes, but, you know, usually comedy happens in the physical. Comedy happens in the body as well, right? Or most of the time, it's actually more body than speech. It's slapstick, right? Think of Jim Carrey, Jackie Chan, Peter Sellers, you name it. So the body is super important for comedy to evaluate whether or not you're a funny actor. And here we go. Most of the times I see like comedic self-tapes, you know, they're very, very close shot. And I don't understand why. It's like, yeah, because they want to look good. They want to deliver the joke and deliver the rhythm. Okay, I can see that. But you can hear that also in a wider shot. Because if you have a self-tape for a comedy movie, then you should take into consideration to use the body a little bit more. And therefore, you need to set up a wider shot, like an American shot, a Western shot, or like an even wider shot than that. If your apartment doesn't look too messy, or then not too much confusion or dirt going on, or any other thing, we've seen a lot, believe me. But yeah, if you can, then you should, you know, set up a wider shot so you can show your physicality. That's super important for comedy. What is that? What else is important for comedy? Maybe it is the physical rhythm. Maybe it's a little dance. Maybe it's a little gesture, a slapstick move, a radical change of pace, of velocity, of all that stuff. So therefore, you need to capture all that. Therefore, probably the wider shot is more effective, because we need to see the physicality when you're playing comedy. And also we need to catch if your body behaves to a certain rhythm, right? And therefore it's more appropriate, right? to give attention, to pay attention to that. If you're shooting a drama, something that is maybe even, you know, something where you need to play desperation or deep sorrow or sadness and all sorts of stuff that are, you know, where you have to kind of deliver a lot of colors, and a lot of, you know, a lot of pain, frustration, all that. So maybe you want to opt for a bit of a closer shot there. Maybe not too close, but just of a closer shot that you have less physicality and more face and more upper body, more torso, because here a lot of things can happen as well, but you want to really express those feelings, right? So you want to make sure people really see what you're doing, even if it's a little, you know, even if you're playing it small or a bit toned down or a bit more simplistic, you know, because not everybody kind of, you know, beats up the play. So if your drama happens more internally, then make sure that the camera sees that. So, you know, jump a bit closer to the body. In a thriller type of situation, we most likely will have, you know, more scenes, and it depending on what you get, of course, as material, maybe you have 2 scenes, maybe you have different setups as well. Because in a thriller, you want to have like a combination of, seeing the physicality, but also seeing your intense feelings and your emotions. When you're playing biopics, especially in the self-tape process, make sure that, again, we have this split component, but, because you want to show one thing of the physicality of that person that is a real life person that you want to interpret, and therefore we can hook to that one thing, whether that's like a mannerism, an automatism, like a physical flaw, or something that you want to show or kind of insert. It could be also a voice thing, and therefore, make sure that you think of all these, different elements, right, and take them into account when you are shooting your self tapes, because they can enormously determine whether or not they will like your material. Because sometimes, of course, they can make the effort of, zooming in, of, boosting it up and all that. But as soon as you give them an alibi to not like you, AKA they need more time to explore your talents because you're making it difficult to see on the first glance, higher the chances are they will discard your material or not book you, or whatever reason, right? Not remember you in a positive way. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but it is, right? Don't give them any reason to dislike you, right? Make it as effective and as streamlined as possible. I mean, you want that too. On the other hand, if you run any regular business, you want fast, effective information, right? Let's say you're an entrepreneur, or you run a company, or you run a division, you're a team leader, or you're getting some information from your team leader. You want effective communication. You want everything told right away. What is most important? What are my bullet points? So you can translate that into immediate action. Otherwise, it gets nasty. So make sure that your assessment is effective. So you will be, seen as filterless as possible, as transparent as possible, so they get a really good assessment of who you are, who the confident you is, right? Generally, of course, for the casting process in itself, like for any other thing, excellent preparation, results most likely an excellent product, or perfect preparation prevents poor performance. 5 P's, right? Perfect preparation prevents poor performance, right? If you're excellently prepared, like our claim is, be uniquely prepared to remarkably share. I give an example that has nothing to do with acting. There was this guy in the southern part of France. It's a true story of France, and he kind of inherited this little bakery shop. And it was a no-brainer. It was a small village in the south of France. You have a great bakery shop, right? People come in to buy croissants and baguette and and brioche and all these French excellent products. And so therefore he could have just inheriting the shop and just running the business like his parents did, and he could be satisfied, right? But no, instead he closed the shop. He closed the shop down, and he said, no, I don't want to just continue the legacy of my parents. I want to bring it to the Olymp. I want to scale the Everest with my inheritance. What my parents did, the tradition needs to be kind of propelled to the top, to the summit point. And what was the summit point, in his opinion? To sell baguettes to the president of the Republic of France. So he had to become the most famous bakery shop in the whole of France, right? And so how to do that? Well, okay, he went on a 2-year trip all over Europe, all over the world, as far as I can recollect, to search out for the best flour, for the best products, for the best bread ovens. He hired just unskilled personnel that he personally taught in very, very many hours, right? And so by the end, he had the best heat, the best oven, the best flour, the best skilled labor, and everything was just perfectionized till it was almost obsessive, his way of preparing everything. And then he opened shop. And I think it took him 12 months to be called by the president of the French Republic. They really called him up and they said, okay, can you deliver to to the Champs-Élysées. Can you deliver? And he said, yes, of course. And then he starts selling to the president and to other diplomatic corps as well. And then he became super, super popular in the whole of France, of course, and everybody was visiting his shop. So instead of just, continuing the lineage, he stepped it up enormously by putting so much preparation into the baking procedure and all the instruments that were, used in the process of making that incredible baguette. And and he definitely outplayed everybody else, because there are 3 ways of training, of exercising your next audition. There is one way of training, of preparing your next audition that will just, lead you to a good level, a level where you can compete, where you will be seen and perceived, which is okay. It's not bad. It's not fantastic. Then you can, exercise and prepare your audition on a level that you could probably book the role on that day, on that given day. If all circumstances are in your favor, you probably could book the role. Then you could also prepare your next audition like you want to dominate the market. Like there is no one else putting in so much work into your audition. And if now you will tell me, hey, this sounds like impossible work, I will tell you from personal experience that I know a couple of actors and of my clients, but one is special, and she is a lady like no one else when she's auditioning, especially self-tapes, but also for her casting process in the house. The amount of preparation she puts in is just mind-boggling. Like I'm already I'm compulsive with my behavior when it comes down to acting and preparing it. But and I always thought nobody could outwork me in terms of being like, obsessive about the preparation and working on so many details. But she really did. And we had self-tape auditioning sessions where I was assisting her from in a completely different time zone on Skype, and it would be in the middle of the night for her, in the middle of the night sometimes even for me, and she would just go on for hours, where even I would go, hey, I think we got it. It's like, no, let's do another take. I really think we got, no, I know we can do. And yeah, usually she was right. She really outworked me, and her preparation to me was mind-boggling. It still is. And she got awarded with that. And she got awarded for that with incredible roles. I'm talking about roles in like seriously budgeted movies, like incredible stuff. Now she's in there. And because of that, right? So, I always say sometimes people misunderstand the concept of entertainment industry. It should be called differently because it's sometimes a bit deceiving. We are not in acting and entertainment. We are in self-designing industry. This is where we're in. It's a self-design industry. You have the ability to self-design your product and be as successful as you like to be. It's your choice, and your choice only, really. Of course, there are hinderings, there are obstacles, there are problems. You have to choose. Am I a fighter or a victim? You have to push through. Success will come, for sure. If you put in the work, if you set big goals, if you aim for mastery and not for perfection, if you're really, willing to train. And I just shot a video on Instagram where I talk about the 4 major aspects of a character and like of a human being. And once you master those, you master everything around you as well. So it's the mental aspect that goes hand in hand with the physical aspect, or the physical aspect that goes hand in hand with the mental aspect. It's the technical aspect that goes hand in hand with the tactical aspect, and vice versa. So tactical and technical, physical and mental. Master those and you master everything else. I also work with athletes. I'm a performance coach for athletes as well, and a mental coach for them, even though I don't like the term that much. But it's beautiful to work on that level as well. And most of the times I don't have to tell athletes. It's like, I'm surely, I don't, I can't tell a soccer player how he needs to play soccer. I can't tell an actor how he needs to act. I can only give them some design instruments and some design recommendations and some design ideas that they can explore on their own with with their intention, with their confident self, with their performance self, right? A lot of people even have a problem with saying performance. Performance is out of the 13th, 14th century. It just means you form what's inside of you. What was formless and shapeless and was part of the void now is part of the light. So this is what we do. We are performers, and it's perfectly fine to call it such. So I want to end this up by asking 3 questions. And then you can ask all the questions that you want and introduce yourself, and I will unmute you. What is it that you guys really want? First question. Second question. How bad do you guys want it? How bad do you guys want it? Like, how big is your desire for that? And third question, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to obtain that? And that's pretty much it. Because if you face the audition process with these 3 questions in mind, there is no way this could ever be called a failure. It will always be turning out to be something interesting, positive, informative, and useful for your legacy. Because it's about building legacies, right? When you build the legacy, winning becomes inevitable. So if you train like you want to dominate the market, then, you know, booking the roles, you know, getting the projects will become inevitable. But if you just exercise like a regular guy or a regular girl that just wants to compete and, you know, take a shot, which is totally fine as well. But don't get frustrated if you don't see yourself up there on a billboard, or if you don't, you know, see the huge numbers on your bank account, or you can provide for your family like you would love to, or when you just feel, hey, God damn it, I feel I can give more. I feel like I can explore more. I feel like I'm more capable than this. And I want to show people what I'm actually capable of. And even if it's just that, which is totally fine, by the way, it's not egocentrical, even if, what is the problem with being egocentrical? As long as you're not a narcissist, it's okay to be egocentrical, because there is a center in all this. And when we have a center, we have a nucleus. When we have a nucleus, we have a division. When we have a division, we have the possibility. When we have possibilities, we have decisions that we can take. And so out of the center, the oneness, the wholeness can be born. Like Aristotle once said, don't get me wrong, I don't like Aristotle that much, but some of his quotes are actually quite good, right? The wholeness is defined by a beginning, a middle part, and an end, like any great movie. This is my addition, of course. Aristotle didn't talk about movies. He was talking about theater plays. But in a way, it's totally, this is right. The holy number is 3 for a reason. It's, you know, 33, right? 33 vertebrae in our spinal cord. Right? This is what makes us human. 33 vertebrae. Think about it. 33 possibilities. Out of that, everything will be born. And so design the way you want to, you know, tackle your next audition. Really think of the most outrageous stuff. Make it uncomfortable for you. Work with any type of obstacle. Don't be comfortable. Go out of the mediocre uncertainty cage. Step out of this limitation box and finally start to decide to improve your attitude every fucking day, so you can really reach for those summit points. Because what is it that you guys want? How badly do you guys want it? What are you willing to sacrifice for it? In the end, it's just energy. It's just your investment. Nothing else. So have fun with that. Thank you so much, creative community. It's been really a pleasure to share this knowledge with you guys. I can only invite you to set big goals for yourself, and, you know, to explore this quest and to take everything into account. And also never forget, it's a team game. Even though we're alone, when we're auditioning, when we're casting, we're in front of this, it's a team game. We need a friend to come over to hold the camera. We need family member to evaluate our performance. We need the casting director to tell us what's good, what's wrong. We need our agent to help us, right? It's always a team game, right? So we're part of a collective, which makes us also stronger, right? Stop with the 1,000 excuses. There is not one single reason to not get up tomorrow and start training like you want to dominate the acting market every time you get called to action. Thank you. And now you can ask questions I will have to unmute you. So maybe you just give me a sign in the chat box who wants to talk, who wants to ask, and then I can unmute you singularly, manually. I think that makes most sense. Of course, you guys are very welcome. This is a true pleasure for me. And I seriously mean that. It gives me always the opportunity to reflect on things that are super important that sometimes we take for so granted. Because if I'm now in this business for many, many years, and that means sometimes I don't even actively think about certain process anymore, which is not good, right? Sometimes we have to, get back to square one, revisit our instruments, our toolbox, undust everything, our instruments, and kind of take a fresh look at, fresh perspective, because there is no final idea, right? Every idea can be slightly manipulated. So everything that I thought so far I would know through you, probably there is a new addition. So I start building on that, on top of that too. So thank you so much for showing up and being part of the creative community. You're more than welcome to send me an email, info@the COACHMC studio. All the participants today, they get a little discount. I'll also jump over to my COACHMC Studio YouTube channel. I would highly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, if you give me a like, comment. Every Saturday night, I'm part of the Saturday Night Hypnosis, so you can check us out there too on YouTube, which is a fun panel show where we we ramble about movies in a bit exaggerated way, but it's all fun, it's all game, it's all love. And I got my Instagram feed as well, where it's the COACHMC, where I have also some art stuff going on and some more granular daily videos and audition tips, acting tips, and mindsets, career strategy tips as well. Okay, so this would be your time to ask questions if you have any. You can just raise your hand. I see Martina. You want to ask something?
Not yet, but I'm thinking about
Okay. Okay.
If I have any questions. So thank you really much. I always learn something new. I mean, Lorenzo and me, we know us about 5 years now, and
Yes.
worked on different projects, and I always learn something new. Yeah, especially about the magic, about acting and all the processes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a magical industry. It's a magical game. There are many things that you have to take into account. Some things are, outside of our control, sometimes outside of our knowledge as well, right? And this is also a reason why I always implore my clients to not, my acting clients to not take it personal when they're not getting at least a call back, because there are many, many reasons and things and currents and motives why sometimes an actor gets a role or not. And they sometimes have nothing to do, or most of the times they don't necessarily have something to do with our skills or with us personally. They have to do with many things, starting from the environment, politics sometimes. So never take it personal, right? You never know what the reason is. Always show your best. Oh, not your best. Show your weirdest. Like, really, this is my show the weirdest part that you have. Show the worst, not the best. You don't know what the best is. You think your best today is this level, and tomorrow you wake up and say, what? It's this level. And the day after that, you think, oh, no, it's this level. So you never know if your best is truly the best or if it's necessary. Because if you look out for what's useful, you will discover what's necessary. And when you play what's necessary, you fulfill the requirements, which is way more valuable than trying to be the best. Sure, Alana. Wait. I unmuted you, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So my question is it more common to get a role from a self-tape, or will they always require you to audition in person? Like, or even when you send a self-tape, would they still ask you to then do it live? How often do they need to see you do it on the spot?
That's a very good question. I'm sorry I haven't talked about that a bit more, because, otherwise this would have taken too long, and I wanted to focus more on like really tangible advice and good stuff. But this is a great question. That is more of a technical, intrinsic question of the process in itself. So sometimes time can be your ally. What does that mean? If you play your cards strategically well, let's say your agent sends you a deadline for a self-tape project, right? And for a self-tape audition for a certain project. And you inform yourself, or your agent gives you a bit more of background information, and you get the idea that they are really desperately looking for this actor that fits the role, right? And so sometimes you just wait with sending in your material, and you send it to the last possible occasion, possibility. So if they haven't found, of course it's a gamble, it's a bit of a risk, but if they haven't found it so far, maybe they're so desperate in the end that time really plays in your favor, plays in your cards, and it's like, right, we don't have time anymore. This is the next best thing to what we thought the character needs, or the actor needs to fulfill in order to book him for the role. So we might as well book Alana, right? We might as well get her, because this is the next best thing. And then bada boom, you get on set and you surprise them. So sometimes when you're sending in self-tapes, it can be in your favor when you use time strategically. I wouldn't start with that attitude, though, with that strategy, because that's a bit more of a, of a gamble, a bit more of a risky game. You should do that when you're a bit more in the game, but and a bit longer there. But usually when the self-tape is good, when they think that you got something and it's worth exploring more, they call for a callback. Sometimes that callback can even be another self-tape. So you send in another self-tape for another scene, or they give you some more text to the first scene they send you, and it's like, and now we have more lines for that scene that we send you. Can you extend the audition, right? So can you record a new tape based on that old scene that is a bit longer now, because they want to see some more emotion, some more facets. And that already is part of the callback process. And then it could very well be that just by shooting 2 videos at home, you get a nice role and you get good money, or you start a nice project, right? So, but usually at a certain point, if we're talking a bit, if we're talking about more budget, like a higher budget, like when we're talking about like, something that starts getting like important, like a couple of $1 million, they usually call you in, and you start having, read-throughs with the director, chemistry readings with other actors maybe that are involved in a project. Maybe there's like a production meeting where you are like table reading the whole thing with them. So you have many filters, then personal filter, life filters that are, they will take place depending on how much time, the production company has to start principal photography, that will happen before you actually get the part, before you actually sign the contract. Cool. If that answers your question, right? Yeah, it's yeah, sometimes you really don't know. Okay, Victoria, I'm gonna unmute you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I clicked twice.
Hello, Lorenzo, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes,
Great.
loud and clear.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for giving us all the input today. It was really nice to have this opportunity to explore it.
Be my guest. Thank you.
My question is, you talked about the actors that went into the casting room and had an idea in their eyes, and then it disappeared. Mm-hmm. So do you have more tips what to do that this does not happen to you when you try to do it?
Yeah, well, usually if, what I said in the beginning, I don't know if you already joined there, it's the now moment. It's when we are wandering around with our thoughts, usually we're leaving the now moment. So whenever you feel like you're losing, or you're drifting, or you're wandering around with your thoughts, or you're trying to guess what somebody else is thinking, usually you're not there. You're not in now. You're wandering around. You're wondering about the future or the past. You're not present. So if you have a game plan, and you set up yourself, like I said, structure, chaos, structure. You set up yourself a great structure, and you go through that door, and all of a sudden you have a hunch, you have a gut feeling, you have your instincts telling you, no, you should do this. Or for what it's worth, maybe this happens in the middle of the reading, right? You're having the scene, you're playing the scene, and all of a sudden you think, no, I'm gonna change the structure that I have set up previously. I'm gonna improvise now. I'm gonna go into a different direction. I'm gonna try something else because I feel there is more powerful energy coming from that direction than from the other direction that I have planned previously. Because maybe it's just happening right now. Maybe you're getting something that you weren't expecting. Maybe it's just, an inspiration that happens in the moment. Whatever it is, you have that gut feeling, go for it. Don't let uncertainty guide you. You can't be afraid and act at the same time. It doesn't work. Uncertainty shows. Unstableness, inconsistency, it shows immediately in your eyes. You're not there. You're not present. So focus, breathe out, give yourself a slap, whatever, scream out, do something weird, doesn't matter. Be weird. Be weird so they remember you, right? But, make your, have something installed as an exercise, as a ritual, as a cue that you can always come back to your senses, to the present moment, and execute your game plan, or be so focused, and all of a sudden you think, okay, I want to go in that direction. I have this idea, this crazy idea. I will do it now. They can always say, hey, can you do it again without doing that crazy thing? It's like, okay. And this happened to me many times as well. But it's a fun, vivid game. It's a date. Treat it as such, right?
And is there any kind of question you can ask yourself to detect if you are in the present moment?
I think this is psychoanalysis. It's not acting anymore. If you start asking the question, so you can double, it's like, are you playing Inception or a Memento with yourself? You're there because you want to put on a show. Put on a show, right? Show them what you're capable of. Don't ask all these questions, because all of a sudden you are in psychoanalysis. You're not in performance mode anymore. You're in analysis mode. Analysis mode is not casting. Analysis mode is home, in front of your book or in front of your computer, with a good glass of wine, and you take your notes and you read Jung or Freud, Lao Tzu, right? So, if you're there, it's too late already. Then you are in analysis mode. You're in rational mode. But just get back to your performance mode. Like, boom, slap yourself, cry out loud, scream out loud, stomp with your feet, do a little dance, break yourself, break the structure up, and start performing.
Okay.
If that helps. Right. Right. So if no one else has any question, I hope you guys enjoyed today's masterclass about the audition. I don't know when exactly the next masterclass is going to be. It's going to be in December. It's going to be for free, like always. We don't really know the date right now, but we'll let you know through social media, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Follow us on all these beautiful outlets. Stay in the creative zone. Stay open-minded. Be curious. Explore, and rehearse. Exercise as much as you can. Be obsessive about that, because by that, you achieve the confidence to go into different directions, to explore, to be curious, to improvise, to do the crazy stuff that will actually get you. Of course, Beatrice, it was great. As we will interact. It's beautiful to see you here, guys. Like, this is amazing opportunity for me again to reflect also on major things. And yeah, more than welcome to join the creative community on YouTube as well. And leave your comments, leave your likes, leave your questions, and see you next time with the next masterclass. Now you're ready to perform. Thank you so much, guys. That was great. See you next time, and yeah, take care. Take care of your craft. Take care of your beautiful gifts. Use your time with urgency and reflection and passion. See you next time. Thank you.